Hello there, good morning, good day, good evening, whatever time it is you're getting to this material. I hope you're having a good day. Hopefully, your mindful meditation practice has been enlightening. I know that journey was for me, that process of just getting still and being aware of my thoughts and becoming aware of what comes up when I get into silence. When I become still, when I allow my inner voice to arise, it was very enlightening, and it still is. I still use, quiet time and mindful meditation and various forms of just quiet time to just become aware of what's on my mind, what racing thoughts are present, um, just for the sake of having that awareness. Now, the mindful meditation might have been really helpful to you. Maybe it's great. Maybe you're finding your way into figuring out in your own intuitive way what to do with those thoughts as they come in. But if you're kind of like I am, and I was, especially as I was younger, it's gotten easier as I've gotten older, I think. But I have a lot of mental energy. There's a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of inspiration. There's a lot of rumination and philosophy going on in this brain all the time. And especially when I was younger, I found meditation as a teenager, which I was very fortunate. So there's a lot of these practices have roots back in these initial explorations and how they evolved over time, over the last 20 years, really. But there was a particular moment that I can sort of pinpoint back when I was a junior in high school. So this is literally 20 years ago now, when I'd begun a meditation practice. I'd begun working with that in my own way, and there was sort of a new reality coming into my awareness. There was one, as I was meditating. This is post 9/11. And I started to have some very interesting psychic dreams. I talk about this in the Awakening Soul Force book. But I started to have dreams that were leading up to the war in Iraq. And that was sort of an interesting experience to have as a young high school kid, making the connection between what was happening in my dream life and the real world, and recognizing there was something going on there. It kind of awakened me to some of those bigger questions. So my very energetic mind really started to run when these kind of things came in. This new political reality, this new kind of global reality, an awareness of myself inside of this American culture, and the American culture and how that fits inside the world culture. So my mind was definitely turned on. Some lights were turned on. And that brought on a lot of ruminations and thoughts and philosophical wonderings. And so my angsty teenager mind started to get kind of caught up in asking a lot of those questions. Well, who am I? Who am I in this culture? What is this culture? What is my relationship to this culture? What is this culture's relationship to the world? Why is there war? Why is there violence? Why is there poverty? All those, those questions, just kind of getting into it. And I had a journaling assignment in my junior year in English class with Miss Lawson, that really did change my life, because we did this journaling assignment and we were allowed to often free write. She would give us prompts sometimes, but we were allowed to free write and just kind of reflect. And I found in those assignments that it was a great channel for me. It was a great way to get some of those thoughts that were going on inside, and those ideas and ruminations and reflections, and then get them outside of myself and put them on the page. And it was really a powerful assignment for me, not only because I found kind of a love and a passion for journaling and writing, which is still kind of a go-to thing for me today when I'm doing my own reflections, when I'm channeling guidance. It's a go-to thing for me. I still use writing and journaling as a way to get my thoughts outside of me so that I can see them and observe them. And that's why this section is called Written Thought Observation, because that's the process. It's about getting these inside thoughts and all this energy that's inside of us and getting it onto the page, which allows us to relate to it in a different way. One, it kind of removes it from us, and then we can read it and kind of take more of an objective look at it and start to kind of see ourselves and our inner life in a different light. And that's what I found so powerful about that. So I really kind of found, I don't know, maybe for the first time, I felt like my voice, these thoughts, these concerns I had as a high school kid, about myself and my place in this world and what this world was. And that's where I got to sort of exercise that energy, you know. And I remember there was a reflection that she wrote. She at the end of the assignment, she encouraged me to continue writing because she thought that she enjoyed reading my entries and thought I was, you know, reflective and insightful. And to hear something like that, to not only start to get those ideas on the page, but then somebody's like, "Hey, you should keep doing this." It was a really powerful moment for me. It really did change my life because, as we can see, I've written 2 books now about philosophy and spirituality, really, and this personal journey. So it's so interesting that journaling assignment, I think, was like a seed that was planted and it was cultivated over time. I chose to do that, but with the encouragement of this great English teacher I had, I found a practice for me that helped me understand who I was and in my place in this world. And that's what I hope that you get out of this sort of written thought observation exercise. It's a great way to exercise anxious thoughts or racing thoughts or philosophical ideas, inspirations, ruminations, reflections. And the most important thing is to do this without judgment. So when you do this written thought observation, it's very important that you hold a non-judgmental space for yourself. And I'm not even going to encourage you to drop into a soul force field meditation. Maybe set a grounding cord, do some rhythmic breathing, just get present with yourself. And then instead of just becoming aware of what comes to your mind, like we did in the mindfulness meditation, now actually write it out and just set a timer and write down everything that comes and just see what happens. Because the interesting thing for me is what would usually happen, especially in those days, and it still happens. I write when I'm stirred up or I'm angry. And what usually happens is the beginning, you can feel like the calloused, the edge of the thoughts. You can feel how hard and sometimes cynical they are. Like I go back and I read some of the, I still have some of those pages from that journaling assignment. And even in my own journals, there are times when I can really tell I was journaling from a place of ego and judgment and like a cynicism, or just being kind of emotionally just triggered and angry. You can feel it. I can by the choice of the words, by the handwriting, like you could just, at least for me, I can sense the angst and the frustration in the reflections that I was putting in on the page. But the interesting thing that would happen is that for me, in the experience, when I start to write and get it out, you'd feel the shift as you go. So maybe it starts off and you're like, why is the world like this? Why does this happen? Da, 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 da. You're doing all these things. And then as you move through your process, you start to settle in and you start to like really connect to the page and yourself. And then all of a sudden, this was something I would see for myself very often, is you sometimes might see an arc. And all of a sudden the writing even changes, the language changes, and the energy of the whole transmission feels a little softer. And then by the end of it, sometimes, I mean, often I would read it back. Sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I would just feel better and I would just leave it. In our exercise, I'm going to encourage you to spend half your time writing and then half your time going back and reading what you wrote and just looking for any of those signs, you know. Because we all do this with our friends and with our family and our loved ones. How many times does somebody come to us with a problem or an issue and they're explaining what they're going through and there's all this emotion and they're caught up in the whitewash of life, and from your perspective the answers are so clear. You know exactly what to do, or you know exactly what to say to comfort and to guide or support, and it's like easy peasy because it's not you. Doing this exercise allows us to kind of do that with ourselves. It allows us to write down all of our thoughts. It allows us to dump, you know, energetically and emotionally and all those thoughts and get them on the page. And then we can spend time with ourselves looking at the page and saying, just like we were reading a friend's, you know, book or journal, and go, oh, interesting. I see what's going on here. We're angry about this, or that wound is being triggered, or I have an attachment to that. But interesting, as I work through it, this is that place I got to, and I'm in a much better place here. It's a really excellent way, it has been for me at least, to work through and work out angsty emotions, racing thoughts, anxious thoughts, and to not only expel them and get them out of me so that I feel more at peace. So in that way, it's kind of like a purge, but also I can use what I've written, and I do use what I've written as a mirror to look at it and say, okay, interesting. And if we keep a journal for a long time, then we see patterns, and that's even more informative. And sometimes, I mean, I've noticed that certain times of the year, certain situations, anytime I'm feeling heartache or heartbreak, there's journals. It's kind of funny because if you were to look at the yellow legal pads in my journals, as I got older, it became more and more focused on just channeling. So there's lots of spiritual downloads, lots of personal channelings, getting guidance for myself. And then there's going to be like this intermittent, these moody kind of um, moments kind of sprinkled in there where I'm like deeply questioning myself or deeply questioning what's going on. And I'm feeling a lot of heartache and I'm very frustrated about my situation. And it's funny because there's not always a lot in between. I haven't been great about reflecting on when things are kind of cruising smooth or anything like that. It's more like getting that inspiration. And then the other journals that come in are when I'm like really in a rough spot. So they can be they're very polarized in that way. But, you know, that's just been my process, and that's helped me find balance in my life. So I want to encourage you to try this written thought observation exercise. Again, there's two pieces of it here. The most important piece, I would say, is to just to get quiet, be with yourself, and start to write, and just channel and journal. Just get everything out, no judgment. If it's angry, if it's dark, if it's happy, if it's sad, if it's disruptive, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just without judgment, get it all out. So we kind of expel the energy and get it moving. That's like number one. Then after that, you can choose to go back and read it or not. I'm going to leave it up to you to decide, but in the prompts, I am encouraging you to spend half your time writing and then spending another half of the time looking back so you can be objective and allow your writings to be a reflection or a mirror to kind of show you where you're at and maybe give you a little clearer sense of who you are in this moment, you know, or who you were in that moment and maybe where you're headed, depending on whatever information you can kind of extract from being able to reflect on yourself and read your own thoughts and words on paper. But this was a very helpful practice for me. I'm so connected to writing, not only as a way to purge and balance myself, but also as a way to bring in inspiration and to connect to creativity, to connect to my authentic voice and my truth. I shared that story a little earlier about how at one point, this was over about 10 years ago when I was in a spot, and I just said, I just want whoever's on the page now, I want that guy to be in the world. Because he's so much more clear, he's so much more thoughtful, he's more articulate, he's more conscious, he's more intentional. He knows who he is. I want that guy to be out in the world. And so it was writing has been a powerful vehicle for me to learn about myself, to reflect, and to deepen my understanding about who I am, and to deepen my understanding about my relationship to the world and the world's relationship to me. So I want to pass that along and see how it works for you. All right, so we've got a discussion board. Have at it. Feel free to share and discuss whatever comes in as you see fit, or you can just keep it private, and that's totally fine too. There is no obligation, no pressure. This journey is about you, and it's about your awareness. It's about your truth, and about you finding your way into understanding what that truth is, and kind of living, breathing, and expressing it in a way that feels authentic and honest and grounded to you. All right, so give this a go. Give it more than once to try. I would recommend trying it daily. If not daily, do it when you're feeling triggered or emotional or angsty or anxious. It's a great way to, if nothing else, to expel and move that energy so that it kind of brings yourself into a little bit more balance. Okay? Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see what you pick up, what reflections come from this practice. And when you're ready, you can click into the next section, and we're going to get into a new meditation called a witnessing meditation, and some powerful stuff here that helps us learn how to not just now be aware of and be with whatever comes in, but in this witnessing meditation, we're going to work on the practice of like releasing and letting go. And that's why this written thought observation is kind of a great bridge practice, because that process of being aware and expressing and expelling is in effect, you know, a step to letting things come up, being aware, and then letting them go and letting them pass in a really healthy way. Now we're going to see if we can do that just in an internal way and with our mind. If we can learn how to engage and detach, or just stay neutral. Just stay neutral with what comes in and see where that takes us. All right? Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next video.